The daughter I've raised for 16 years is not my biological child. The nanny's daughter has been doted on as a princess in my family, while my biological daughter has been suffering in the countryside. After bringing my biological daughter back, I was determined to send the adopted daughter away. However, my husband and son wouldn't allow it. My husband said that the adopted daughter has good manners and upbringing and can hold her own in social situations. My son thought that his biological sister was too rustic and unsophisticated, and she would embarrass him in public. I looked at the dejected expression on my biological daughter's face and took her hand. Then let's get a divorce. I'll live with my daughter, just for this one thing. You want to divorce me? Bruce couldn't believe it. Sherry, are you crazy? I shook my head. I'm serious. Let's get a divorce. Simon, who was 12 years old, was also stunned when he came to his senses. He looked at me in disbelief. Mom, just because of that country bumpkin, you're going to leave Dad, leave Sister, and leave me too? Simon, I looked worriedly at the girl at the stairwell and frowned and scolded him. How can you talk like that? That's your biological sister. I won't admit that she's my biological sister. Simon's little face turned red with anger. He roared furiously. She's just a country bumpkin who can't be taken out in public. She's rustic, unsophisticated, and has a bad heart. She's even trying to persuade you to divorce Dad. I hate her to death. I only have one sister, and that's Sarah. After saying this, he ran out crying. Bruce quickly sent someone to chase after him and then looked at me with a reproachful look. Are you satisfied with how things have turned out? Can't we keep both children? Why do you have to send Sarah back? It's not like our family can't afford to raise her. She's also your daughter. I can't treat her as my daughter anymore. Rage welled up in my heart, and an overwhelming sadness swept over me. Didn't you see Susan's medical examination report? You also know how difficult her life was in that family. For the past 16 years, we gave Sarah such a good life and let her grow up happily. But our biological daughter was abused for a full 16 years. After seeing the wounds on Susan's body, I can no longer treat Sarah as my daughter. Bruce's face darkened, and he was obviously annoyed. Can't we make it up to Susan in the future? It was her biological parents who did the wrong thing, and it has nothing to do with her. She's innocent too. Was all the love you had for Sarah before fake? I choked up a bit. The love I had for Sarah in the first 16 years was based on the fact that I thought she was my biological daughter. If Susan had been treated well, I wouldn't have such a strong aversion to Sarah. But the fact is that even if Sarah didn't know about it, she really stole the life that originally belonged to Susan. I said clearly, word by word, she's not innocent. Bruce's eyes flickered, and he seemed a bit moved. However, soon a female voice with a sobbing tone came from behind me. Mom, the half-closed door was pushed open, and Sarah walked in with a heavy step, carrying her school bag. Her eyes were red, and she was holding back her tears. Don't you want me anymore? As soon as these words came out, Bruce felt extremely heartbroken. He strode over and comforted her gently. Don't listen to your mom. She's just too worried about your sister and has lost her mind. Right. As he spoke, he winked at me. Sarah also looked at me eagerly, with tears in her eyes that were about to fall. In the past, I would have been extremely heartbroken to see her like this. But now, when I saw her like this, all I felt in my heart was resentment. In my previous life, I only found out after I died that the world I lived in was a novel about a real and fake wealthy daughter where the fake one was the beloved. My biological daughter, Susan, is the real wealthy daughter and also the villainous second female lead in this book. Her identity was maliciously swapped, and she was abused by her adoptive parents in the countryside for 16 years, suffering a great deal. She thought that she would find happiness when she returned to her real home. But who would have thought that whether it was her biological parents, the servants at home, or even the teachers and classmates at school, they all took the side of the fake wealthy daughter, Sarah. Everyone felt sorry for Sarah because she changed from a real wealthy daughter to a fake one, but no one asked how Susan had been living in the past 16 years, including me, her biological mother. I was influenced by the plot, clearly. Every time I thought about making up for my suffering biological daughter, but as soon as I saw Sarah, the only daughter in my eyes and heart was her. Because of this, Susan became extreme and started targeting Sarah everywhere. She died on her 24th birthday. That day was Sarah's wedding with the male lead. She kidnapped Sarah and wanted to die together with her. As a result, she was shot and killed by the police on the rooftop of the 38th floor. My body was holding Sarah and crying with joy, but my soul was floating in the air, watching her figure falling from the 38th floor and wailing, Sherry, Bruce's dissatisfied scolding interrupted my thoughts. He frowned tightly and looked at me anxiously and disappointedly. Do you really want to give up the daughter you've raised for 16 years for someone else? I subconsciously looked up and saw that the girl hiding at the stairwell had a grayish face. And her eyes had also become dull. Susan is not someone else. Resentment and anger made my breathing rapid. She's the precious daughter I gave birth to after 10 months of pregnancy. She should have been by my side for 16 years. I looked at Sarah beside him and didn't hide my resentment. If it weren't for her biological parents who swapped my daughter, and if it weren't for her seizing my daughter's place, Susan wouldn't have suffered for so many years. Sarah's face suddenly turned pale. And she murmured, "Mom, don't call me Mom." I looked at her coldly. I only have one daughter, and that's Susan. Her tears fell instantly. She took a few steps back and ran out crying. Sarah, Bruce was anxious and angry, with a dark face. Do you have to talk to the child like that? Sherry, when did you become so unreasonable? After saying this, he chased after her. I took a deep breath. When I looked at the stairwell again, there was no one there. I went straight upstairs and knocked on the door of the master bedroom on the second floor. The door opened quickly. Susan walked in silently. On the bed was the school bag that she had packed at an unknown time. You don't have to do that. Although we are biological mother and daughter, we are actually no different from strangers. She lowered her head and clenched the school bag strap. I'll move out and live on my own. I won't affect your family's life. However, can you give me some money? I just need a few months' living expenses. Once I start school, I can find a part-time job near the school. I choked up for a long time before I called her name. Susan. What Mom said just now was sincere. She froze. I took a deep breath and continued. You saw everything just now, didn't you? Then why don't you believe what I said? I know that you can't accept living in the same room as Sarah and calling each other sisters. Similarly, I can't continue to be mother and daughter with a thief who stole my biological daughter's life. I gently took her hand. How about living with Mom in the future? Just the two of us. You don't have to worry about tuition fees and living expenses. Mom can afford to support you. After a pause, my eyes turned red. Mom should have supported you in the first place. She didn't answer. But her shoulders were shaking. I leaned closer and saw that she had already been in tears at some point. She no longer pretended to be strong, and she no longer wore a tough shell to keep people at a distance. She turned around and threw herself into my arms, and awkwardly called out those two words, Mom. I hugged her, and tears streamed down my face. In the previous life, after Susan died, Sarah and the male lead had a happy ending, as the plot came to an end. I gradually got out of the control of the plot and regained my reason. Every night, I would dream of the look in Susan's eyes when she was dying and the figure of her falling from the 38th floor. I started having trouble sleeping and would recall the days after Susan came back home over and over again. We were biased towards Sarah, ignoring her, belittling her, looking down on her, and slandering her. During the 8 years that she was back in the Smith family, she didn't have a single good day. She had a bad reputation during her lifetime, and after her death, she was even hated and despised by everyone. Her biological father said, if we had known that she would hurt Sarah, we shouldn't have brought her back in the first place. Her biological younger brother said, just thinking that I have the same blood as that bitch makes me feel sick. Her biological mother said, how could I have given birth to a child like you? The daughter I gave birth to after 10 months of pregnancy only received the treatment she deserved on the first day she came into this world. After that, she suffered every day. After getting out of the control of the plot, I was immersed in regret all day long. By chance, I saw Sarah talking to her biological parents. I just found out that this seemingly weak and kind adopted daughter had known her true identity since she was 9 years old. She instigated her biological parents to abuse Susan and even wanted to sell Susan to the mountains, trying to cover up the truth in this way. Everything that Susan encountered after she was brought back was planned by her, with the purpose of making her hated by everyone. I couldn't believe it and rushed out to question Sarah, asking her why she did that, whether it was the control of the plot or the years of getting along. I always regarded her as my daughter. Although I hated myself for not being able to get out of the control of the plot and felt extremely sorry for my biological daughter, Susan, I still couldn't hate Sarah. I raised her from a tiny baby to a beautiful young woman. She was also my daughter. I always thought that she was as gentle and kind as she appeared, but who would have thought that she was the mastermind behind Susan's tragic life? I was collapsed and desperate. But after a brief moment of panic, Sarah said resentfully, you all forced me. You kept saying that you loved me the most. But once you found out that I wasn't your biological daughter, didn't you bring that bitch Susan back? And you, Mom, didn't you say that I was your daughter? Then why did you seem like you lost your soul when Susan died? Now you're blaming your favorite daughter for a dead person. Mom, why? We argued. She joined hands with her biological parents and pushed me into the empty swimming pool from the rooftop on the second floor. I died on the spot. I thought that my soul would go to hell and that maybe I could apologize to Susan after death. But unexpectedly, when I opened my eyes again, I was back 8 years ago. I was pleasantly surprised to find that I was no longer controlled by the plot, so I brought Susan back from the countryside as soon as possible. Despite Bruce's opposition, I announced Susan's true identity to the public. Then I sued Sarah's biological parents in court. I'm determined to give Susan happiness. I want to change her tragic ending in the previous life, make her happy every day, and give her a brand new life, instead of always being the villainous supporting female character in a script where others are the protagonists. Do you really want to divorce him for me? I took Susan and left the Smith family and moved to a property in my name. When we were packing our luggage, she couldn't hide her unease and anxiety. Will you regret it in the future, because of me? I told her firmly, no. Your dad and your younger brother chose Sarah, who they've been with day and night, while I chose my biological daughter. Although it's really unfair to you, I want to tell you that they gave up on you first, so you don't have to care about them. I looked into her eyes seriously. You just need to know that you're my daughter. We're connected by blood, and we have the closest relationship in the world, so you don't have to worry. Mom will prove it to you. Her eyes turned red, and she nodded heavily. Since I want to change the tragic ending of the previous life, I need to stay away from Sarah completely in this life. I transferred Susan to number 1 middle school in the city, not the noble high school that Sarah attended. I also took her back to the Hunter family to meet her grandparents, uncles, and aunts. In the previous life, between Susan and Sarah, my parents, my elder brother, and sister-in-law favored Susan, who had been living away from home for more than 10 years. This time was no exception. Compared with the spoiled Sarah, they obviously felt more sorry for the sensible and obedient Susan. When they learned that I was going to divorce Bruce, my parents and elder brother all supported me. My marriage with Bruce was a business marriage, although we were lucky enough to develop feelings after marriage. After so many years, the feelings had long since faded. More importantly, he had mistresses outside. And there was more than one. In the previous life, I was controlled by the plot and wanted to give Sarah a complete and happy home, so I had been enduring it. In this life, without any scruples, I directly sent him the evidence of his infidelity that I had collected over the years. He called me less than a quarter of an hour later. What do you mean? I frowned. Didn't I make myself clear enough, wife? Bruce's voice softened. We've been husband and wife for so many years, and we're at this age. There's no need for this, right? I was just having some fun outside. You know that you're the main wife, and no one can change that. If you don't like it, then I'll spend more time with you and the children. Susan just came back, and it's not a good idea for you to make such a fuss, is it, Bruce? I emphasized my tone. I'll repeat it to you again. I want to divorce you. I'm not joking. I really can't live with you anymore. I think you're dirty. I think you're blind for not recognizing your biological daughter and treating the daughter of human traffickers as a treasure. Do you understand? Bruce didn't agree to the divorce. I guess it's understandable. His public image outside is that of a doting husband. Now, not only has the issue of the real and fake wealthy daughter come to light, but also the image he has built for more than 10 years is about to collapse. It's no wonder he won't agree, but I don't care whether he agrees or not. When the media got wind of it and asked me, I told them the whole story without reservation. So the next day, the news that the president of the Shen Group's image as a doting husband had collapsed, that he had been unfaithful for years, that he had treated the daughter of human traffickers as a treasure, and that he had ignored his biological daughter who had been abused for years swept across all the major headlines. When Sarah and Simon came to find me, Susan and I had just come back from the supermarket, holding the fresh meat and vegetables we had just bought. I was going to cook a sumptuous dinner for her. As soon as they saw me, the eyes of that pair of siblings instantly turned red. Simon was young and not very good at controlling his emotions. He glared at Susan angrily and then looked at me with tearful eyes and great indignation. Just because of her, you left sister, and you left dad and me too. Now that things have turned out like this, are you satisfied? Sarah tugged at his sleeve, seemingly trying to stop him from saying what he was going to say next, but it obviously had the opposite effect and made Simon even angrier. Now everyone outside is spreading the news that dad is having an affair and scolding sister as a thief. My classmates in the class are all laughing at me. Mom, please go back and help dad explain. Isn't it good for our family of four to be like we used to be? I looked at Simon with great disappointment. You only care about your dad and sister. Why don't you ask me if it's true that your dad cheated? He retorted, Dad loves you so much. How could he cheat? It must be this bitch who instigated you to smear Dad's reputation in this way. Simon pointed at Susan. And his gaze was like that of someone looking at an enemy who had killed his father. If it weren't for her, our family wouldn't have become like this at all. He rushed over and pushed Susan. Leave, stay away from my mom, you're not welcome in our family at all. I finally couldn't bear it anymore and pushed him to the ground. Simon, have you had enough of this tantrum? You're not 1 year old but 10. I don't believe you don't have the basic ability to distinguish right from wrong. You still don't want to believe the fact that I'm going to divorce your dad. You rush to the front and throw a childish tantrum just because Sarah provoked you a bit. You've really disappointed me. Simon sat on the ground, his eyes dodging a bit, but he really loved Sarah so much that even after being exposed by me, he still defended her. It has nothing to do with my sister. I dragged her here to find you. You've been blinded by this country girl and said such hurtful things to her. But now she still cares about you and wants you to go home. Mom, get it straight. Sister is the one who cares about you the most. Sarah helped him up, and tears fell from her eyes like beads off a broken string. Mom, it's all my fault. I know you don't like me. I'll leave as soon as you come back. I definitely won't stay here to annoy you, but can you go back and help Dad explain? She looked at me earnestly. You and Dad have had such a long relationship. You shouldn't have ended up like this because of me. If it weren't for this country girl coming back, our family wouldn't have become like this. Stop talking. Simon was still shouting, and Sarah was extremely anxious. Simon, stop talking. She's Mom's child and your sister. Before she could finish, Simon angrily interrupted her. I don't recognize her as my sister. My only sister is you. She's a scheming girl who covets our family's property. One was shouting, and the other was persuading. Their coordinated actions made their purpose very clear. I looked at the child who had grown up by my side since childhood, and a chill couldn't help rising from the bottom of my heart. How could a girl of only 16 years old have so many schemes? Sarah, you've really disappointed Mom. Sarah's body trembled, and she raised her head stiffly. Mom, what are you talking about? I don't understand. I've done my best to raise you this big. I've never done anything to let you down. On the contrary, you took my daughter's place and enjoyed the life that should have belonged to her. Even now, you're still playing these schemes and coaxing your younger brother to charge into battle for you. Sarah's face turned pale instantly. Simon shouted anxiously, Mom, how can you say that about sister? It's clearly me. Shut up. I interrupted him sharply and looked at Sarah coldly. You're really worthy of being the child of those two people. Sarah's pupils shook violently, and she looked at me in disbelief. I just glanced at her faintly and then led Susan through the gate of the community. I didn't miss the hatred for me in her eyes. I also heard Simon speaking up for her and showing no respect for me, his biological mother, but I didn't care. In my heart, that pair of siblings had nothing to do with me anymore. Sarah was the biggest instigator of Susan's tragic life and the #1 murderer of me, her adoptive mother. Simon was naturally no good either. He perfectly inherited his father's heartlessness. After my death, even though he knew that Sarah was the murderer, he still took great pains to cover it up for her. It's okay, sister, Mom is dead, and no one will find out. My soul floated in midair, and I saw him squat down and pull Sarah, who was crying so hard that her shoulders were shaking, into his arms. I'll take care of everything for you. This was an accident, and no one will suspect you. That's when I knew that Simon had been Sarah's accomplice from the very beginning. He fell in love with this non-biological sister against ethics and became her most loyal follower ever since. They embraced affectionately on the second floor, while my corpse was exposed to the sun. These were the two children I had doted on. Mom, a call brought my thoughts back to reality. Susan looked at me quietly. Are you regretting it? No. I smiled bitterly and told her honestly, I just think my education over the past so many years has been a failure. I've put in so much effort for them, but I ended up raising two ungrateful people who can't distinguish right from wrong. She was a bit at a loss and said eagerly, I won't be like that. If you want to, divorce. I support you. I'll support you no matter what you do. I smiled. I know. I stood up and stroked her head, praising her softly. Good girl. She probably had never been this close to anyone before, and her face turned red all the way to her neck. "I'll go wash the vegetables first." I looked at her fleeing back and couldn't help but smile. After smiling, I felt bitter again. She was such a good child, yet she had such a tragic life in her previous life. "Mom, should I cut the tomatoes into cubes or dices?" Susan poked her head out from the kitchen and asked a bit shyly. I walked towards her. "Let me do it, don't hurt your hands." The previous life was already in the past. In this life, with me here, her life will only be full of light. I'll clear all the obstacles for her. I successfully divorced Bruce. He didn't want to divorce at first, but I was willing to divide the joint property with a ratio of 30% for him and 70% for me, and then he agreed, after getting the divorce certificate. He put on an act. "If you encounter any difficulties in the future, you can tell me. After all, we've been husband and wife for so many years, and we still have 2 children." "No need," I interrupted him. "Now that we're divorced, we should go our separate ways and wish each other well." Bruce frowned. "Sherry, our 2 families have known each other for so many years. You don't have to be so harsh, do you? I'm blessing you, can't you tell?" I smiled at him and got in the car and left directly. In the rearview mirror, Bruce stood there with a frowning and cold expression. Obviously, he didn't take my words to heart. Sarah never came to look for me again after that day. Perhaps she knew that no matter what she did, she couldn't win me back, so she put all her energy on Bruce and Simon. Photos of the 3 of them attending banquets or going on outings often appeared in the news. The father was loving, and the children were harmonious. Although the affair of infidelity and divorce had an impact on the stock price of Shin Group, it was still within the controllable range. In less than a month, this drama of the real and fake wealthy daughter was replaced by new explosive news. Half a year later, Bruce made a wrong decision, which led to a loss of up to $10 billion for Shin Group. He was expelled from the board of directors and was heavily in debt. I saw Sarah and Simon again. "Mom, please help Dad." Simon had lost weight and looked haggard after not seeing him for just half a year. He burst into tears as soon as he saw me. "If you don't help Dad, he won't be able to live." I frowned. "What does this have to do with me? Bruce can still afford to pay off the debt now. Why is he looking for me?" Simon looked at me with red eyes, as if I wasn't his mother but his enemy. "Are you really my mom? Do you really want to watch Dad die?" I chuckled. "Didn't you say that you don't recognize me as your mom? We're strangers from now on." Simon's face turned pale instantly. It happened to be his 13th birthday when we just got divorced. I called and asked him if he wanted to celebrate his birthday with me. He said, "Since you chose that country bumpkin, I won't recognize you as my mom from now on." "Mom, no, Aunt Sherry, I know you don't like me, but Simon is innocent." Sarah looked at me timidly. "Although Dad has let you down, he is still Simon's dad. Just for Simon's sake, please help Dad." Afraid that I wouldn't agree, she said eagerly, "As long as you're willing to help Dad, I can leave the Smith family right away and never bother you again." "Sister," Simon was also anxious. He held Sarah's hand tightly. "You can't leave. My home is your home. Where are you going?" He looked at me again, as if he had made a great sacrifice. "As long as you're willing to help Dad. At most, at most. I'll call that country bumpkin sister in the future." I sneered. "Should I thank you then?" There was an obvious ironic tone in this laugh, and Sarah and Simon's faces turned from green to white. "I've already divorced your dad. Whether he lives or dies has nothing to do with me. But you're my son, and I'll still pay the alimony every month as usual." "No need." Simon suddenly interrupted me loudly. He seemed to have been greatly humiliated and glared at me hatefully. "You've really disappointed me. From now on, I don't have a mom like you anymore." After saying that, he pulled Sarah and ran away. Bruce also came to look for me. He begged me to help him on the phone. After I refused, he became angry from embarrassment. "Did you do this on purpose?" When we got the divorce certificate, the words you said, "Did you harm me?" I was so angry that I laughed. "Did I force you to invest? Didn't you make this decision yourself?" He had nothing to say. In fact, the same thing happened in the previous life. It's just that I discovered the loophole in that project at that time and stopped him in time. After the person in charge fled with the money, he was touched by my good intentions, so he broke up with the woman outside and lived with me wholeheartedly. In this life, I've completely awakened and am no longer controlled by the plot, so he has gone down the path he should have taken. After paying off the debt, Bruce completely became a penniless man. His parents couldn't bear to see him living on the streets, so they took out money to set up an industry for him, but he wasn't willing to fail. He sold the house and his shares and planned to start a business. In the end, he lost everything and became obedient. Old Master Sheng was so angry with him that he had a heart attack and passed away half a month later. Uncle of the Smith family took away the old lady of the Smith family and cut off contact with Bruce since then. They came to look for me again, but by that time, I had already accompanied Susan to study abroad. I still paid the alimony as usual, but I wouldn't see him again. Susan was busy attending language classes, and I was busy helping her adapt to the foreign environment. When I heard news about Sarah again, it was already half a year later. She ran away with a wealthy young master from Hong Kong City. She also embezzled the alimony I sent to Simon and left the alcoholic and decadent Bruce to Simon, who was only 15 years old. I wasn't surprised. She was selfish and self-centered, wishing that the whole world revolved around her. However, I really wanted to see Simon's reaction. The sister he loved the most not only abandoned him but also embezzled the alimony he relied on for survival. What would he do? Simon reported it to the police. Perhaps Sarah was too confident in this younger brother. She didn't even hide her whereabouts much and was caught by the police on the streets of S City just like that. That wealthy young master still liked her a bit. He helped her pay back the money and gave Simon a sum of money, and then Simon withdrew the case. This news even made it to the headlines. When I looked closely at the face of that wealthy young master, I suddenly remembered that this was the person who had beaten his wife so badly that she was sent to the hospital in the previous life and was later found to be a drug user by the police. Looking at Sarah's admiring expression for him in the video, I suddenly became a bit expectant of her future life. As for Simon, he got my contact information from my elder brother and called me once. On the phone, he apologized to me, saying that he was sorry to me and also to his sister. He admitted that he was wrong. I put the phone on speaker, and Susan, who was studying English, said faintly, "I don't have a younger brother." Simon choked up and sobbed even more violently. I just said, "You don't have to worry about your tuition fees and living expenses. I'll transfer money to you until you're 18 years old. Mom, don't you really?" That's it. I hung up the phone promptly. He's my son, and I won't ignore him. But after he turns 18, he'll have nothing to do with me anymore. When Susan saw me hang up the phone, she peacefully continued studying. I looked at her figure bathed in the sunlight and smiled sincerely. I'll let her live a carefree life like this all the time. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, let's continue to see another similar moving story. When the madam gave birth to the eldest young lady, there was a fire in the hospital. Based on my years of experience reading novels, something was bound to go wrong. In the chaos, I hid in a corner and observed my surroundings. Right under my gaze, a nurse secretly swapped the eldest young lady. I looked at the master, who was holding the madam with a worried expression, and shook my head secretly. Then I swapped the eldest young lady back. A top-notch butler never fails to fulfill his mission. One day, more than a decade later, the eldest young lady rested her chin in her hand and asked me, "Uncle Butler, do you think I'm the child of Mom and Dad?" I looked at her suspiciously. "Why are you asking this all of a sudden, eldest young lady?" The eldest young lady let out a sigh. She rarely didn't study hard today. "I just suddenly feel that I don't seem to be their child." I stroked the eldest young lady's head and wore a kind expression. "Eldest young lady, not every child resembles their parents. Many ordinary parents have given birth to genius babies, and many excellent parents have children who are rather ordinary. Uncle Butler, are you saying that I'm ordinary?" The eldest young lady raised her head with a discontented look. I smiled faintly. "No, the eldest young lady is very excellent. You will definitely become an outstanding scientific researcher in the future." "Huh? Why not a businessperson or an artist?" "Because you should do whatever you like, eldest young lady. You don't have to change yourself for the madam and the master. The eldest young lady is a good child, and a good child doesn't always have to be obedient." There were tears in the eldest young lady's eyes. "Woohoo, Uncle Butler, even if I'm driven out in the future, I will still miss you." She went back to her room with a heavy heart. I squinted my eyes slightly and adjusted my bow tie. It seems that the eldest young lady has misunderstood her own background as a top-notch butler. I should share the worries and solve the problems for the family of my employer. I took out my phone and called the driver. "Wilson, what strange people has the eldest young lady met recently, or what has she been in contact with?" Wilson is an honest boy. In other words, he's a bit simple-minded. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been a driver for so many years and still not have had much of a pay raise. I saw that he was innocent and wouldn't be easily persuaded to defect by others. So I specifically arranged for him to pick up and drop off the eldest young lady. After all, if there are no accidents, my new employer in the future will be the eldest young lady. That accident here doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the eldest young lady's identity, but rather my current good-for-nothing employer, the eldest young lady's father. Over the years, he has been very promiscuous outside. If it weren't for me helping the madam, he would probably have several illegitimate sons and daughters by now. It's not that I look down on illegitimate sons and daughters, the main thing is that those mistresses don't have a high education level and didn't graduate from prestigious universities. I have dealt with a few of them for the master privately. Well, how should I put it? They were all in the late stage of being love-obsessed and seemed hopeless. They were crying and making a fuss, insisting on seeing the master. I don't know how they managed to get into university, however, although my current boss has a bad style, I have to admit that he looks quite good, a little more handsome than me, but how can a mistress not have a bit of a career ambition? Shouldn't those mistresses who deliberately approach and plot for a long time to fight for the property be the objects they admire? Men, what's more important than money? So my future boss must be the eldest young lady, not to mention anything else. These women will definitely raise their children in the wrong way. At the least, their children will be love-obsessed, and at the worst, they will become antisocial elements. That won't do, definitely won't do. I'm still counting on doubling my future bonus. Oh, I've digressed. I have to get back to Wilson. That unlucky boy, Wilson, let out a few silly laughs and said that there was nothing strange. He laughed in a rather stupid and cute way. I still have to check it out myself. There really wasn't anything suspicious. I could only confirm that the eldest young lady had been feeling a bit gloomy since this morning. I took out the notes I had made from the novels about real and fake young ladies that I had read over the years. I ruled out the possibility that the parents of the fake young lady had come to the door. I ruled out the possibility that the fake young lady had appeared around the eldest young lady. I ruled out the possibility that the eldest young lady had been reborn, because a reborn eldest young lady wouldn't doubt her own background. I ruled out the possibility that the eldest young lady had discovered something was wrong on her own, because this possibility simply doesn't exist. Then there are a few remaining possibilities that can't be explained by science. First, the eldest young lady had a prophetic dream and foresaw what would happen in the future. Second, the eldest young lady had transmigrated into a book, and the current eldest young lady isn't the real one. Third, the eldest young lady had bound a system and taken the wrong script of the fake young lady. The second possibility can be directly ruled out. I have raised the eldest young lady, and I have spent more time with her than the master and the madam. I know every unconscious little movement of the eldest young lady very well, every intonation when she speaks, and the sound of her shoes hitting the ground when she walks. Of course, I'm not a pervert. I just want to better understand the thoughts in the eldest young lady's heart so as to take corresponding countermeasures. This is the professional quality of a top-notch butler. The remaining two possibilities, in fact, don't really matter. I'm sure that the eldest young lady has taken the wrong script of the fake young lady, whether it's a prophetic dream or a system. It has misled the eldest young lady's judgment, but it doesn't matter. I adjusted my bow tie. A top-notch butler will definitely take action. According to the plot of the novel, the matter is about to reach a turning point. Sure enough, the next day, the master, who hadn't been home for a long time, came back. He leaned on the sofa in the living room. I ground coffee beans by hand for him. The madam came downstairs gracefully and snuggled up in his arms, acting coquettishly. Charles, why didn't you call me when you came back? I could have asked the nanny, Jane, to cook your favorite dishes. I turned around with the coffee in my hand and just happened to see that the madam had just done a big red manicure. Her slender fingers were resting on the master's shirt in front of his chest, and the red color was dazzling. The master held the madam's hand and kissed it, then hugged her and said, I wanted to give you a surprise. My dear, are you happy? I rolled my eyes in my heart. But on the surface, I showed a very dutiful smile and placed the coffee in front of the master. Where's Bella? The master picked up the coffee and took a sip, then asked me, the eldest young lady is feeling a bit unwell today and has been resting in her room. The madam stood up noisily. Oh dear, is my baby sick? I'll go up and take a look. The master sat there as usual, not moving. He just asked, not feeling well. Has a doctor been consulted? I nodded. There's nothing wrong. She's just a bit sunstroke and has no appetite. The master held the cup and was silent for a moment, watching the madam go upstairs. He slightly lowered his voice and said to me, William, when we have dinner later, you go up to the young lady's room and get a strand of her hair or a toothbrush. also get one of the madams. I cursed him inwardly but smiled and nodded, not asking any more questions. The master was very satisfied with my performance. I trust you the most with this matter. After you get them, you personally send them to the hospital this afternoon. I nodded with a professional smile. Yes, master. When will the test results be available at the earliest? Master, if it's urgent, it will take 4 to 5 hours. The master nodded and took out 2 transparent bags from his bag. These are from me and another person. Send them together. I took them. Yes, master. The madam brought the eldest young lady downstairs. The nanny, Jane, invited them to have dinner. Looking at the pale-faced eldest young lady, I let out a slight sigh. After all, she's still a child and can't hide things in her heart. When the meal started in the dining room, I quietly went upstairs. The eldest young lady's room was very tidy. I took a strand of hair from the pillow and put it into a transparent bag. I closed the door softly and walked into the master bedroom to collect the madam's hair. The master is passionate but also suspicious. Although he has some genuine feelings for the madam, that doesn't mean he always believes that the madam won't betray him. A man's suspicious nature. After putting away the bags, I went back to the living room, and no one noticed. It seems that the master is going to stay the night. The madam is very happy. I contacted the hospital and was about to drive there. As soon as I walked out the door, I saw the eldest young lady standing at the door in a daze. Seeing me, she smiled with a pale face. Uncle Butler, are you going to the hospital? I bent slightly. Yes, eldest young lady. The eldest young lady's eyes turned red, and she looked a bit dazed and at a loss. Are you really going to do a paternity test? I let out a soft sigh. Young lady, please rest assured, you are the eldest young lady of the George family, and that's a fact. It seems that the eldest young lady has misunderstood something and is a bit anxious. Uncle Butler, don't do anything stupid. I can accept any result. I smiled faintly, stroked her head, and said, please rest assured, as a top-notch butler, I can't and won't deceive my employer. I want to tell you that you are the child of the master and the madam. The eldest young lady looked at me in a bit of a daze, with tears still on her face. Uncle, am I really the child of mom and dad? Her tone was full of uncertainty and doubt. Please rest assured, this is the truth. I'll be back in the evening. The eldest young lady can go back and take a nap, and then play some games. After soothing the eldest young lady, I went to the hospital. Of course, while waiting for the results, I also had to find out how the master had come to doubt this matter. This is the professional quality of a top-notch butler. I need to ensure that there won't be any accidents for my future employer. I went to see the master's special assistant. He's a young man who does things very steadily, and we have dealt with each other many times, of course. Most of the time it was because of the master's mistresses. We get along very well, at least when it comes to the future employer. We have the same goal. Assistant Kevin took me to a place, an old residential building in the urban village. Do you see that little girl washing clothes? She ran to the company's front desk today and said that she's the boss's biological daughter. I looked over. It was a girl who looked very delicate on the outside. She was squatting under the big sun, washing clothes, and her face was all red from the sun. She didn't look similar to the master and the madam on the outside, but she was still pretty and cute. She was dressed simply, and the shoes on her feet were even a bit faded. It seems that she doesn't have a good life at home either. It fits the plot described in the novels very well. It's just that she's a genuine fake young lady, and this is the life she should be living. I'm a bit confused. Why didn't the master arrange for her to stay elsewhere and let her go back home? I asked in confusion. Assistant Kevin shook his head. The boss arranged something for her, but she didn't agree. She said that she would be beaten if she came home late and insisted on coming back to wash clothes. There were big question marks in my mind. Is this fake young lady taking the path of a strong and pitiful little white flower? That makes a lot of sense. In this way, the master will pity her more. What did she say exactly? Assistant Kevin smiled. She said that she heard the conversation between her adoptive parents and they said that they swapped the children back then. It's quite funny, but the boss believed it. No, the swapping of children is true. Assistant Kevin looked at me in surprise. William, you also think it's true? I nodded, because I witnessed it at the scene when they swapped the children. After they left, I swapped the children back. Assistant Chen opened his mouth wide. I concealed my merits and achievements and smiled professionally. Sure enough, waiting for this day for so long makes one feel very happy. When I got back to the hospital, the identification results came out not long after. Assistant Kevin looked at the several pieces of paper and wasn't surprised. Although the eldest young lady isn't interested in business, I can tell at a glance that she's very smart. Even if she weren't the boss's child, she would still be an excellent child. I really don't know what the boss is thinking. He doubts his own daughter just because of someone else's words. I smiled and flicked the several pieces of paper, then carefully put them in my bag. Do you think that fake young lady isn't smart? Assistant Kevin thought for a while. She's quite smart too, but it's just petty cleverness. She has too many schemes. How should I evaluate this kind of child? It's like a sapling that has been grown crooked. Anyway, she's different from the eldest young lady. The eldest young lady is obviously a sunny and cheerful good child at first glance. I smiled. It was already 7 p.m. when I got back to the George family. The master was sitting in the living room waiting for me, and the madam was sitting beside him watching TV. Seeing me come back, the master stood up. William is back. Come to the study. I followed him upstairs. In the study, the master was silently looking out the window. I have known the master for almost 20 years. I have been working for the George family since I graduated from school. I know him quite well. He's passionate but also suspicious and a bit dictatorial. You can't say that he doesn't care about the madam and the eldest young lady. He still has some genuine feelings for them. So now that he's sitting here in a daze, he's probably making the worst plans and thinking about how to arrange for the madam or the eldest young lady. Look at this person. He's not completely bad. After a long time, the master lit a cigarette. What's the result? I handed the documents to him. Please take a look. The master's hand trembled a bit. He held the cigarette in his mouth and took the documents. The documents were gently opened. The master squinted his eyes as if he had been smoked by the cigarette. After about 2 minutes, the master let out a sigh of relief, leaned back in the chair, and extinguished the cigarette. I'm really getting old. The master smiled and suddenly looked at me with sharp eyes. William, you've watched Bella grow up. You're not lying to me, are you? My good professional ethics have been wronged at this moment. As a top-notch butler, these words of Charles are simply slandering me. I tried my best to maintain a professional smile and answered in a serious manner. Master, please believe in my professional quality. I won't do anything to hide from my employer. This is an insult to me and the butler profession. After a pause, I continued, if you're not at ease, you can have the test done again. The master stared at me for a few seconds and then smiled again. Come on, William, I was just joking with you. I showed a smile on the surface, but I wasn't happy inside. Damn it, I really want to slap him. No one can question my professional quality. This is the persistence and bottom line of a top-notch butler. I don't know if the master believed me or not. When I came out of the study, I saw the eldest young lady. She looked at me nervously and was a bit uneasy. I smiled and walked over. Eldest young lady, is there anything I can do for you? Under my smile, she relaxed slightly. No need, Uncle Butler. I think I know the answer. I smiled with relief. Sure enough, only the employer I chose myself understands me. The eldest young lady is really intelligent. I don't know how the master dealt with the fake young lady. The eldest young lady's 15th birthday is approaching, and I have a lot to prepare. There's no other reason. The madam doesn't remember the eldest young lady's birthday either. The eldest young lady doesn't like this kind of banquet. She always has to deal with a lot of people she's not familiar with, but the master has decided to hold it well this year. Perhaps it's out of a sense of guilt. After all, as a biological father, suspecting his own daughter doesn't sound like something a decent person would do. When the banquet started, the eldest young lady stood beside the cake with a sweet smile. And I held a camera to record it. Wait a minute, a voice came from the door, and everyone looked over. It turned out to be the fake young lady. She was wearing a little white dress, with a miserable expression and a delicate temperament. She really looked like the leading lady in a Little White Flower story. Mom and Dad, I'm your biological daughter. She shed tears and cried very prettily. Even I, with a heart of stone, couldn't help feeling a bit of pity for her. I turned around and saw that the master indeed had a look of compassion in his eyes, and the eldest young lady's face was pale. I let out a sigh. This is the birthday banquet that I organized single-handedly. Damn it, couldn't she have let me finish recording the eldest young lady making a wish? Under the surprised gazes of everyone, the fake young lady walked step by step in front of the master and the madam, crying pitifully. Mom and Dad, don't you want me? The madam's eyes were full of confusion and innocence. Child, who are you? The master sighed. Young lady, I've already told you, we're not your parents. The fake young lady was crying so hard that she was out of breath. How could that be? I heard it with my own ears. I'm your daughter. The madam has a soft heart and quickly wiped her tears. Oh, good child, don't cry. The fake young lady took the opportunity to throw herself into the madam's arms and wailed, Mom, I'm your daughter. I'm your daughter. Back then in the hospital, someone swapped us. The guests were in an uproar. The master frowned helplessly, and the eldest young lady stood there alone, looking at a loss. I stepped forward and said to the eldest young lady, go ahead and make a wish. Nothing is more important than your happiness today. Only then did the master realize that the banquet was still going on. He quickly asked the madam to take the fake young lady to the second floor and greeted the guests to continue. The eldest young lady looked at me with a pale face, and her eyes were full of grievances, which made my heart ache. I smiled and raised the camera. Eldest young lady, smile for me. Amidst the blessings from everyone, the eldest young lady forced a smile, made a wish, and cut the cake. But after all, her mood was affected, and the banquet ended soon. I looked at the doorman, Lee, and asked with a gentle smile, how did that girl get in? Lee hung his head, William. She said she was the eldest young lady, and I didn't dare to stop her. I nodded. Well, you did a good job. Go and clean up. You can leave after you hand over your shift tomorrow. You can get an extra month's salary. William, Lee looked up and pleaded, I was wrong. I won't let anyone in next time. I patted his shoulder. Lee, you should be glad that the eldest young lady is safe and sound. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you like this. Lee left dejectedly. I adjusted my bow tie. There's still a fake young lady who has the script of the real young lady to deal with. I'm a bit excited. The fake young lady was brought back to the living room. She clung to the madam, with red eyes, looking very pitiful. The master patted the eldest young lady's hand to soothe her. Bella, this girl is named Summer. This name doesn't sound like that of a leading lady in a novel. I quietly walked behind the eldest young lady and sized up this fake young lady, Charles. Summer said she's our daughter. What on earth is going on? The madam looked at the master in confusion. This girl has a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. Summer interrupted the master. I'm your daughter. The master sighed. I've already shown you the paternity test results. Miss Summer, we're not father and daughter. I want to have another test. Summer's voice was a bit loud and sounded a bit sharp. She looked at the eldest young lady, her eyes full of vigilance. I don't believe the test done by anyone other than Dad. I want to have another test. The eldest young lady looked at her, with an indifferent expression. Don't look at me like that. If you're the daughter of the George family, I'll leave right away. The master frowned. What nonsense. You're Dad's daughter. Where else could you go? Summer couldn't believe it. Dad, you really believe that she's your daughter? I thought something was wrong. This Charles is a suspicious person. He even probed me when he trusted me before. The reason he didn't go for another test himself in the end was probably that he had some true feelings for the eldest young lady over the years. Now that Summer is so confident, I'm afraid he'll start having doubts again. Sure enough, Charles was silent for a few seconds before saying softly, I believe in my intuition. Bella is my daughter, but since you're so sure, I'll have another test done to put everyone at ease. The eldest young lady lowered her head slightly, and her expression couldn't be seen clearly. I silently cursed Charles. Anyway, it's already late today, and the test results can only come out tomorrow. The master arranged for Summer to stay. This time, Summer didn't refuse again. She was probably also worried that something else might happen. Mom, Summer called the madam timidly. Can I sleep with you tonight? The madam was taken aback and widened her eyes. In the madam's view, this suddenly appeared child, Summer, is extremely strange, unfamiliar, and without taste. Yes, the madam is an artist and always looks at everyone with a critical eye. Summer is wearing a white dress with no decorations, which can be considered simple. The madam probably dislikes her aesthetic taste very much. As I expected, the madam refused awkwardly. Child, I'm not used to sleeping in other beds. Summer looked as if she was about to cry. Mom, do you dislike me? I'm not dirty. I took a shower on purpose before I came. Tisk, she's quite skilled. The madam, with her soft heart, couldn't bear it and felt a bit sorry for her. All right, you've been tired all day. Summer, the madam and I have something to discuss. You can go to bed first. The master gave the order, and Summer had to shut up and follow the nanny, Jane, to leave. The eldest young lady sat in the living room, a bit silent. I walked over and stroked her head. Happy birthday, eldest young lady. The eldest young lady's tears dropped on her dress, and she was trembling all over. Uncle, thank you so much. I sighed and handed her a tissue. Don't be sad, it will be a nice day tomorrow. I promise you, the eldest young lady sniffled with red eyes. Bella, Bella, someone was shouting outside. It was that guy from the Lincoln family. The eldest young lady stood up and ran towards the window. Carl, why are you back? The guy from the Lincoln family stood at the gate, smiling brightly. I'm back to celebrate your birthday. Happy birthday, Bella. His voice was so loud that the master and the madam heard it too. Is that Carl? It's rare that he still remembers Bella's birthday. Bella, go and invite him in to sit for a while. The eldest young lady ran out and came back with a big gift box. What did you buy? It's so big. The eldest young lady swept away her previous unhappiness and smiled beautifully. Well, this guy is somewhat useful after all. It's a model I made. I won the gold award in this competition. Open it and take a look. The two children sat together and opened the gift. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Summer standing at the stairway, watching. She looked at that guy, Carl, and seemed to be in a daze. Surely not. Is there going to be a plot of stealing a boyfriend? My alarm bells rang loudly. Senior. Summer walked downstairs and called out. The heart that I had been holding in my throat finally relaxed. They're old acquaintances. The eldest young lady's smile faded, and she frowned slightly. Carl looked at Summer in confusion. Who are you? It turns out to be unrequited love. Summer smiled gently and weakly. I'm Summer from No. 1 Middle School, a junior of yours. Our teacher always mentions you, and I admire you very much. Carl's confused gaze turned to the eldest young lady. Is she a relative of yours? The eldest young lady shook her head. She said she's the biological daughter of the George family. Carl widened his eyes and whispered in the eldest young lady's ear. Is she out of her mind? Why are you still keeping her at home? She should be sent to the hospital. His voice wasn't very low, and even I heard it. Summer's face turned pale, and her body swayed slightly twice, as if she had received a great shock. Carl was so scared that he stepped aside. Hey, don't fall. This is called false accusation. Summer's act of being weak and pitiful finally met its match. The other party regarded her as a dangerous person. In the end, she forced a smile and staggered away. The eldest young lady covered her mouth and giggled. Carl raised his eyebrows. Let me tell you, this is what's called a white lotus in books. When you meet someone like this, either confront them like I did or stay away from them. You're such a bookworm, you'll definitely suffer at her hands. I rarely find this guy pleasing to the eye. He's a clear-headed little guy. The next day, after breakfast, the master took a group of people to the hospital. The hospital and the doctor were all reserved by the master himself, and the materials were also handed over by the master personally. I prepared a small cake, fruits, and a game console for the eldest young lady in case she got bored while waiting. Unexpectedly, before the results came out, we waited for the police officers and a middle-aged couple. They pointed at Summer and shouted, "That's our daughter." As soon as Summer saw them, she hid behind the madam and the master. The police officer walked over. "Hello, sir. We received an alarm call. This couple said their daughter was missing, and we traced her whereabouts. We contacted you in advance." The master nodded. "Yes, I received your call half an hour ago. Is it Summer?" Summer hid behind and didn't say a word. The middle-aged woman stepped forward and dragged her out. "You little brat, running so far away. Do you want to worry your parents to death?" Summer struggled and shouted, "No, you're not my mom. You're human traffickers. You little brat. What nonsense are you talking? Do you believe I'll tear your mouth apart?" The middle-aged woman pinched Summer, and Summer let out a scream. The police officer's face turned serious. "Madam, please calm down and let go of the child first." I frowned and watched this farce. "Officer, this child has always been a bit mentally abnormal, and what she says is all jumbled up. Don't take it to heart." The middle-aged man smiled and stepped forward, pulling the woman aside a bit. Then he looked at Summer with a cold gaze. "Summer, you need to know when to make a scene. Your mother and I won't hold you accountable for running away from home. Hurry up and come home with us. Don't cause trouble for the officer. Who's your daughter? You two human traffickers. You deserve to die. Uncle, hurry up and arrest them. They're human traffickers." Summer was crying and shouting, with a sharp voice that made people's ears ache. The master and the madam involuntarily took a few steps back. The police officers looked at each other, and one of them grabbed each of the couple. "You two, are you really Summer's parents?" The middle-aged woman glared at Summer. "If I'm not your mom, who is? I've provided for your food, clothing, and schooling all these years, and you actually call me a human trafficker." The middle-aged man also sighed. "Summer, although your mom and I didn't agree to send you to that summer camp, it's because we really don't have much money at home. You can't just run away from home out of anger and spread rumors about your mom and me. Why can't you be more understanding of your parents? Their expressions were so natural that it was hard to tell who was lying for a moment. Summer shook her head while crying and cried to the police officer. I heard it with my own ears. They swapped the children back then. I'm not their biological daughter. These are my real mom and dad. She pointed at the master and the madam. The police officer was a bit confused for a moment. The middle-aged woman was furious and slapped Summer in the face. You little brat, you don't want your own parents anymore, do you? I've raised you for so many years, and you're such an ungrateful wretch. How have you raised me, since I was a child? When have you ever cared about me? When have you ever given me pocket money? My little brother gets whatever he wants, and I do so much housework every day. You either beat me or scold me. What kind of parents are you? She choked with sobs in every word, making those who heard it feel sad. Even I felt a bit sorry for her situation, but if it weren't for me, the one who would have suffered this would be the eldest young lady. What did the eldest young lady do wrong? Just because she was born into a wealthy family? That's really ridiculous. Mr. Charles, do you know the situation? A police officer asked Mr. Charles. Mr. Charles nodded. I know something. I brought Summer here today to do a paternity test as well. Have the results come out? Mr. Charles shook his head. We still need to wait for a while, Mr. Charles. Right, I'm Summer's father. I'm really sorry. This child is talking nonsense and causing you trouble. We'll take her back now, and we won't do this test anymore. The middle-aged man smiled and walked over, pulling Summer, intending to leave. This reaction was even more suspicious. Sure enough, not only the police but also the master stopped him and pulled Summer to the other side. Mr. Jack, since you're already here, it's better to wait for the results. After all, if the children were really switched by mistake, it's better to know it early. The middle-aged couple was a bit nervous, especially the woman, who broke out in a cold sweat on her forehead. The eldest young lady squeezed my hand, and I looked down and gave her a reassuring smile. Would you like to have some drinks? The nanny, Jane, freshly squeezed some juice. I think you'll like this flavor. The eldest young lady was taken aback for a moment and then nodded slightly. So, in the tense atmosphere, the eldest young lady held a glass of juice, and the straw made a soft sound. Summer looked over jealously, but I stepped aside to block her view. Sorry, Miss Summer, I only brought one glass. Summer's face twisted slightly. No, I'm not thirsty. The madam leaned on the master's chest seeking comfort, and the master patted her shoulder. Only the middle-aged woman noticed this. She had been stealing glances at the eldest young lady. She really looked a bit like a loving mother. It's a pity she directed her feelings at the wrong person. Alas, I'll offer a half-hearted apology. When the doctor came out, everyone looked at him. He pushed his glasses nervously and handed the report to the master. The results are out, Mr. Charles. Please take a look. The master took it and, after reading it, scanned the people around, the nervous look in the eldest young lady's eyes, Summer's barely concealable look of joy, and the guilty and frightened expressions of the middle-aged couple. The master slowly exhaled and said with a smile, Summer and I are not father and daughter. It's impossible. The color drained completely from Summer's face. She rushed over, snatched the report, looked at it carefully, and then collapsed to the ground, muttering to herself, how could this be? I heard it with my own ears. As if she had thought of something, she stood up, grabbed the middle-aged woman's clothes, and a twisted and ferocious face. Didn't you say you swapped the children with your own hands? Why isn't it true? The middle-aged woman was also shocked. I don't know either. Back then, I clearly swapped them. Shut up, the middle-aged man interrupted her. The master's face looked very ugly. Did you really swap the children back then? The middle-aged woman was horrified and shook her head to deny it. No, we didn't swap them. Otherwise, how could the child have no blood relationship with you? The middle-aged man also nodded in agreement. My daughter has something wrong with her mind. She's ruined her mind by reading novels. We've caused trouble for everyone. We're really sorry. The two of them pulled Summer and were about to leave. I put on a professional smile and stopped them. Sorry, I probably know the truth. I've been waiting for this day for more than 10 years. No one knows how excited I am now. As a top-notch butler, I also have my shining moments. I took out my phone, opened a video, and handed it to the police. This is the surveillance video of the hospital back then. Although they created chaos, I retained the evidence. This lady pretended to be a nurse and swapped the children. The surveillance captured part of it. I also have the testimonies of the medical staff they bribed, and I can contact the witnesses now. Summer stared at me in a daze. What? The children were really swapped? I nodded. Yes, I witnessed this incident with my own eyes back then. The eldest young lady looked up at me in surprise, and I stroked her head. Why didn't you stop them? Summer shouted shrilly. Since you saw it, why didn't you stop them? Do you know how I've been living these years? I waited until her voice stopped before saying, You've misunderstood, Miss Summer. After your mother left, I swapped you back. Under the dumbfounded gazes of the master and the madam, I smiled slightly. The middle-aged couple stood there in a daze, unable to believe it. The woman looked at Summer. Swapped back. You're my daughter. Summer collapsed and shouted. I adjusted my bow tie and said to the police, I will send more evidence to the police station later. Now, should we arrest the criminals? I'm a bit confused. Why didn't you report it to the police back then? I showed a mysterious smile. In novels, isn't the climax part always when the trump card is revealed at the last moment? That would be more satisfying, and readers all like to read that. I've been waiting for this day for more than 10 years. The police officer scratched his head. Well, it seems that's really the case. I watched as Summer's parents were taken away. Summer was in a daze, crying and laughing. The madam couldn't bear it and sent her to a psychiatric hospital and paid the fees. I took out a small cake and handed it to the eldest young lady. Would you like to have some more? Eldest young lady. The eldest young lady smiled at me. Yes, I can finish it all. The judgment for the James couple came out soon, sentencing them to 5 years in prison. I don't know how much influence the master had in this. I focused on being a top-notch butler. The eldest young lady suddenly decided to study business management, and I was a bit puzzled. Don't you prefer research in the scientific research field? The eldest young lady gave me a sweet smile. Uncle Butler is always happy when he receives the bonus. I want to give Uncle more bonuses in the future. There's not that much money in scientific research. My eyes suddenly became moist. Eldest young lady, you don't have to do this, Uncle. I just want to give it a try. As the eldest young lady of the George family, it's a bit embarrassing not to know one more skill. The eldest young lady bounced upstairs and suddenly turned around and said to me, It doesn't matter if I don't do well, right? I nodded with a smile. Yes, it doesn't matter. The eldest young lady left satisfied. I smiled with relief. The eldest young lady is a very excellent child. After graduating with a master's degree, she officially took over the company. And the master stepped back to a secondary position. I also trained a new top-notch butler and became the most idle person in the George family. The monthly bonus is 3 times the previous amount. Ha ha ha, it's still the employer I trained myself who suits me the best. It's been worth waiting for more than 20 years. The most troublesome thing for me every day now is that I have more white hair on my head. I'm hesitating whether to dye it all black or all white. That guy from the Lincoln family volunteered to dye my hair for me, saying he wanted to make me the most handsome old man. I'm a bit tempted. I'll trust this guy once. I chose silver hair. I've watched a lot of anime and really like white-haired characters. Carl is quite good at this. Well, he's a bit more tolerable now. The eldest young lady mentioned Summer to me during dinner. We haven't heard this name for several years. She was sent for treatment back then, and the master, out of pity, sponsored her to go to university. Her grades were okay, and she was admitted to a top university. After that, we didn't pay attention to her anymore. The next time we saw Summer was at a business exchange event. Summer stood beside a company president, and it wasn't clear whether she was a secretary or had another position. When she saw the eldest young lady, she twirled her hair a bit embarrassedly. At the end of that day, she stopped the eldest young lady, hesitated for a moment, and said softly, I'm sorry for what happened back then. The eldest young lady walked up to her, took off her suit jacket, and draped it over her. She smiled and said, There's no need to be sorry. If I were in your position, I would have made the same choice as you. Summer stared in a daze, and her eyes turned red. She clenched the jacket tightly. I used to think that if I had your identity, I would be different. Now, seeing you, I understand that you're the one who will be excellent no matter what the environment is. I really like your name. It implies that you can be as elegant as an orchid in a secluded valley and have an otherworldly temperament no matter what the environment is. Summer, I hope that the next time we meet, you'll be happier and more confident than you are now. The eldest young lady turned around and walked towards the car. She heard Summer shout loudly, Thank you, Bella. The eldest young lady waved her hand, and her back looked very dashing. This is what the eldest young lady described to me. In fact, that day, She was shivering with cold, and finally, Carl draped his own jacket over her. I officially started my retirement life in the George family. I plant flowers and vegetables in the garden every day, but as I'm getting older, my back is not very good. That guy Carl always comes running over to help me. He's careful when doing things. And I sit aside with peace of mind, drinking tea and watching him busy. When the eldest young lady comes back, she leans against the side and smiles at us. Humph, this Brad is not too bad, I guess. 3 years after the eldest young lady and Carl got married, I became an elder with a higher seniority, when the young master could talk and run around. I became the butler grandpa. The young master is cute, smart, and very good at making the old man happy, but he's really a bit of a handful, making a lot of noise every day. The eldest young lady had tears in her eyes. Woohoo, Uncle Butler, even if I'm driven out in the future, I will still miss you. Anyway, Uncle William, you look so handsome today. No wonder this brat insisted on coming to sleep with you. I looked at myself in the mirror complacently. Of course. Your father-in-law isn't as handsome as me even now, definitely. How can my father-in-law compare to you? I heard from Bella that you're extremely capable and can make this guy behave himself in just a few words. I took the young master over and with just 3 sentences, I made him obediently hold his pillow and wait to go to bed. Goodness, Uncle William, you're simply amazing, as expected of you. So, shall we leave this guy with you today? Carl smiled and ran towards the door. Thank you for your trouble. I watched him disappear in a flash and silently cursed this guy. He didn't want to take care of the child and wanted to have some alone time with the eldest young lady, so he dumped the child on the old man, the handsome old man. He's really annoying. I looked at the young master, who smiled at me with his big eyes blinking. He's so cute. He's indeed the eldest young lady's child. Well, I'll reluctantly play with the child one more time today, after all. A top-notch butler is the most reliable and trustworthy. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.